With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain, coming to you from an ancient cabin in the woods in the middle of rural Louisiana. Glad to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I heard somebody tapping on the back door of this cabin, and I went to look to see if there was somebody out there. Wasps. It was wasps colliding, I guess, with their reflection, or they're building a nest or something. Yep. It's got Wild Kingdom out here. Oh, my goodness. That's all right. All right. Delighted to have you with me. Look, I want to do something that I don't often do these days, and I want to tell you why. Well, let me tell you what I want to do. I want to talk the real raw politics of the campaign. The reason that I don't do this a lot is because, one, I think it can be overdone. I'm a political junkie, and I got to force myself to steer away from it because I could talk about it all day because I'm fascinated by politics and campaigns. But also, it's really early. It is really early. There isn't a lot that has changed. And it can just, I think people are already tired of it, even though it's early. I'm exhausted by this campaign season. I'm ready for 2026. I'm ready to move on from this. It feels like we've been in it for a millennia, and it hasn't been a long time. But I do think there's enough stuff out there right now that I'm doing you a disservice by not giving you my take. Now, for those of you who are new to the program or wonder what expertise do I have to even talk about this, one of the things that I abhor is the just giving you the talking point stuff. I hate the talking points. There's no reason to give you talking. Well, you can listen to any other conservative talk show in America, and they're going to give you the party line that the GOP spoon feeds out. You know, they do these phone calls where you can sit in and you can get these briefings and stuff. I prefer to think for myself and not just march to the beat of someone else's drums. Now, my expertise is this. I was a political consultant. I was a lawyer for the campaign for President Bush twice. I was a political consultant for congressional, state, federal, local races around the country. My win record far surpasses my loss record in congressional races, state elections, local elections. I myself was an elected Republican, got myself elected. I do know how to run campaigns, and I do know what to look for on the campaigns, and I do understand how the polling works and doesn't work, and I do understand what you look for in the strategies, and you can see things at play. So, for example, let me just, and this goes to something I was talking about a little while ago. When you see campaigns doing things, they've taken a poll. You can say, and there are some candidates who don't poll, by the way. They just run with their gut. They tend to be local or congressional. They don't tend to be statewide. They're definitely not presidential level races. But when you see a political campaign operating in a particular way and it becomes a pattern that they're doing, they've taken a poll and they know they have either a problem they need to shore up or they have something that they're doing that's working and they want to keep doing it. The way polls work for a national presidential campaign, I had Signal Polling here. Brent Buchanan from Signal Polling a couple of weeks ago talking about polling. Let me explain this to you. When a campaign does a poll, that poll comes back and it is like a 3-inch binder full of data. It's not a media poll. A media poll costs thousands of dollars to do. A presidential campaign poll, a Senate poll, costs tens of thousands of dollars. And they ask a lot of questions. And the goal of a presidential poll, hush Siri, the goal of the presidential poll is to tell the campaign what they're doing is working or not working, or give them some sense of where the campaign needs to go or not go, things they need to avoid, things they need to amplify. So let's take that into the raw politics we're seeing right now. I mentioned in the last hour, Kamala Harris is going to Atlanta on Friday. She's going to Atlanta to talk to a symposium of black men, and she's going to try to remind them that Joe Biden is on their side and Donald Trump is not on their side, that they need to stand with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that they've been loyal to them, so it's time for payback, that Donald Trump is a racist. In fact, you had Joe Biden out trying to make this case. Let me play you some audio. It makes no sense.
She knows so long as she was 9.
Yeah, that was Joe Biden. He also saying that the Republicans are essentially calling them the KKK again. They're in new outfits, but the same old rhetoric, among other things. The fact that Joe Biden is having to tell black voters that essentially the Republicans are the Klan and you can't support them and it's bad, the fact that you're having to do that, the fact that you're having to say that publicly, the fact that you're having to go back to your old rhetoric about Mitt Romney will put you back in chains, that right there tells you that the internal polling for the Democratic Party also shows they have a problem with black voters. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that shouldn't be the case. And yet it is the case. Joe Biden is having to woo black men because Joe Biden knows in his own internal polling that he believes is right, that they're slipping, and this is a very close race. The 100 Black Men of America conference will be in Atlanta on Friday, and Kamala Harris intends to do this. Greg Bluestein from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Harris's visit is part of a tour focused on economic development that includes a stop this week in North Carolina, another Democratic target in November. She's kicked off that tour in Atlanta in April with a discussion with black business leaders. Friday's visit will mark her 4th to the state this year. And then there's this. Shrinking the unemployment rate gap between black and white Americans, increasing the wealth of black families, and bolstering support for black foster children who age out of the program were among the topics the White House stressed on Monday as evidence of the way the president has improved the lives of black people since being elected. President Biden is continuing to court black voters in Georgia and the nation with the expectation that high turnout among the demographic is needed to help him once again defeat former President Donald Trump. A CBS poll on Sunday found that while the president's support among black voters is not as strong as it was in 2020, it has improved. Engaging black voters is a crucial part of Biden's reelection strategy. Y'all, Joe Biden's in trouble with black men, not black women. Black women don't like Donald Trump. There are some who do. Anecdote is not data, though. The data suggests overwhelmingly black women like Joe Biden. They actually don't like Kamala Harris, but they like Joe Biden. But black men don't like either one of them. Anecdote, it's not data. I've told you the anecdote before when I was in Vegas at the beginning of May. The black manager on the floor at the casino was complaining about Biden and his 3 strikes law and how Trump got members of his family out of jail with the First Step Act. Said he wasn't sure he was going to vote for Donald Trump, but he knew he wasn't going to support Joe Biden because of the 3 strikes law that Joe Biden authored back in the day. Joe Biden has problems with black voters, and it's an opportunity for the Republicans. And here's the frustrating thing for the Democrats. There are those of you in the audience right now who are listening, who are black, who are telling me, that Donald Trump's not going to win a majority of black support. This is insane. And what you're missing is that he doesn't need to. He only needs a couple percentage points more. 2 black Republican House members and Trump surrogates reserved a cigar bar near downtown Philadelphia last week and invited conservative organizers and Trump-curious black voters to smoke and sip cognac. Some Democrats denounced it as a crass play rooted in stereotype, but the event was geared toward a demographic that Republicans see as one they can cut into just enough to win in November: black men. Republicans, pointing to recent polls that show black voter support for Democrats softening, are making a push to win the votes of black men. The effort has led to a series of awkward episodes of political theater. Donald Trump marketing gold sneakers to young men of color, suggesting that his conviction on felony charges make him relatable to black voters. He campaigned with rappers facing charges of gang murder and weapons possession. His allies say that his critics are missing the point. The Republican Party, which was nearly 60% white as recently as 2022 in the exits, isn't trying to appeal to every black voter. It just needs enough to undermine Joe Biden's bedrock coalition. And it's working. It's working enough they're having to send Kamala Harris to Atlanta. It's working just enough that Joe Biden's having to go back out and scream racism at Republicans and compare them to the Klan. They're panicked on the Democratic side. The raw politics of this matters. Donald Trump doesn't need 25% of young black men. He just needs to go up a couple percentage points more. He got 12% if he can get to 15%, which is doable in the economy. He pads margins that hurt Joe Biden. But not only that, so they're screaming at the Republicans that you're going to a cigar bar and inviting black men to come have cognac. That's a stereotype. They do it too. They do it too. I'm a member of a speakeasy in Atlanta called the Red Phone Booth. Do you know the clientele is overwhelmingly black? Black men smoking cigars. I have fun every time I go. The conversations are great. It is a fun place to go with a great cigar, so great bourbon selection too. I have a lot of fun. And black men are increasingly conservative. They may be social on socially liberal on a lot of issues, but everyone is conservative in what they know best. And as the black entrepreneurial class has risen in this country, in large part thanks to Donald Trump's policies that were very small business friendly and helped a lot of young black men increase their income, they've seen their income go down with Joe Biden, and they're conservative about the things they know best, and that's their business. And it's opened the door for them with Donald Trump. And it's the raw politics of that matter. Hispanic voters and immigration. The group of people in this country most hostile to illegal immigration is Hispanic voters. And Donald Trump, by being aggressively anti-illegal alien, actually helps himself with Hispanic voters. These little pieces here and there, it matters. It's why, again, I think, not to beat a dead horse here, but it's why I think Tim Scott matters as a potential vice presidential candidate. This, how you get vilified when you say this stuff, but it's true. Barack Obama was the first black president of the United States. His father was from Kenya and his mother was white. Kamala Harris is the first black vice president of the United States. Her father was an immigrant and her mother was an immigrant. We haven't had a black president or vice president in this country who descends from native-born black Americans with that black experience. You can vilify me for telling you the truth here. But the fact is, Kamala Harris's immigrant family descends from slave owners, and Tim Scott's native-born family descends from slaves in South Carolina. And that resonates with black men. Don't believe me. I've talked to enough of them to know it's not anecdote, it's data. That sort of narrative matters to them. It's a historic opportunity. It's why I think that Tim Scott's a no-brainer for the Trump campaign. Regardless of who he chooses, it's smart politics for him in a very close election that hasn't changed much in months, where it's basically 48-48. Pull away 3% more of black men, pull away 7% more of Hispanic voters, men and women, get the working class consolidated and get him to show up. Trump wins. The raw politics here work to Trump's favor. Joe Biden's on defense. He has to preserve every part of his coalition. Donald Trump's got to grow it, and he can grow it by taking from Joe Biden.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
Probably a perfect metaphor for what's happening in Europe right now, in France in particular. Versailles is on fire, and it looks like they've contained the fire, but France, they're having a rightward shift moment. Let's go to the phones. Philip, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show. Now, I just want to make sure this is not the Philip who works for me calling in from his beach vacation. This is an actual, competent Philip.
Can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, well,
yes.
I'm not your Philip. I'm my own man.
Good for you.
Anyway, I wanted to thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying yesterday about the EU and how the elites of the EU look at the commoner of Europe. I traveled Europe pretty hard in 2002 for pleasure, and I met a lot of rank and file working people that owned businesses, and they were very dissatisfied with the EU at that time in the way that they had open borders, immigration, everything was welcomed. And I look at the media the same way, the European media the same way as the American media, where they look down on the common person because they think we're a bunch of hicks and rubes, and they don't report accurately of everything that's going on. They have an agenda, and I compare today's reporting with the World War II axis. Think of what Germany had plans, design zone, Japan, and Italy, and today that axis is China, Russia, and Iran, and they all have their own parts of the world that they want to dominate, and no one points that out. And
Philip. Okay. So I'm glad you said this. I got to let you go there first. You're right about the elite dripping with disdain. There is a huge story that I've got to get to when we come back. A huge story that's probably going to get buried somewhat because of its significance that you need to know about. A parliamentary investigation in Canada, our northern neighbor, finds that the Chinese have co-opted members of parliament to do China's bidding in Canada. You've got the Chinese now in Mexico. You got the Chinese in Canada co-opting members of government to enact their agenda, trying to surround us. Wait till you hear the story. Right now, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. Y'all, I brought one with me. I can put it in my travel bag. It's so small, I hold it in my hand. I can plug it up with a USB cord. If there's a USB outlet on a computer or in a car, I can plug it up in the wall. I haven't had to use it, though. This cabin, despite being well over 100 years old, is fantastic. But I brought it, and you can too. They're highly portable. You can get 3 of them and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. Use discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm is an air purifier, so it gets rid of dust and pollen, things like that. But where I use it is an odor eliminator. If it's a musty odor, if it's a pet odor, like a litter box or a wet dog, if it's a smoke odor, I've used it in my car when I had cigar smoke in my car. It just wipes out the odors, and it just works. You can get 3 of them, one for upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV, wherever you need them. Get 3 of them, save $200. EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3, the number, no space, ERIC3 at EdenPureDeals.com.
Sephora's biggest sale of the year is on. Get 20% off the best gifts, including makeup from brands like Rare Beauty.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
20% off skincare from brands like Glow Recipe and Summer Fridays.
These are my fave.
20% off hair care like Way and K18.
I'm obsessed.
And 20% off fragrances like Valentino, Donna, Born, and Roma.
so good.
20% off your purchase now through December 15th. Shop now at Sephora and Sephora at Kohl's.
Oh, my goodness. Joe Biden is going to deliver remarks at Everytown's Gun Sense University, happening right now, just a few hours after his son was found guilty for crimes related to purchasing a gun. Wow. Oh, irony. Okay, 877-973-7425. I'll get to the Canada story here in a minute, but first I want to go to Bill. Welcome to the show. Bill, how are you?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
I'm great.
So the reason that I called is I wanted to comment on your Tim Scott story about him being the vice president and attracting young African-American voters. I really, really agree with that. And my question is, how can we conservatives influence Trump to pick him? What can we do?
I honestly, calling the campaign, talking about it on social media, those sorts of things matter. The campaign pays attention. You call the campaign, you email, you tell them you think you got the great pick. Go in this direction. They tend to pay attention to that sort of stuff. But all the campaigns do. But they're going to do a lot of research. Donald Trump is not going to announce his running mate for some time. They'll get closer to the convention, but they do a lot of research. They're vetting all the potential candidates right now. They're trying to make sure they don't have skeletons in their closet. They got to go over finances, things like that, and make sure there's no dirt or baggage that could come up. They want to do opposition research on each of the would-be vice presidential nominees because they know that's what the Democrats are going to do. And, it's going to take them a little while. But your voice does matter. Calling the campaign matters. Now, I want to talk to you about the story. If you got the show notes today, big story I put at the top for everybody, paid and unpaid, of the subscribers. You can text DATA to 33777. Let me play you this audio. This is from Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister.
We have seen around the world a rise of populist right-wing forces in just about every democracy that we've seen. And it is of concern to see political parties choosing to instrumentalize anger, fear, division, anxiety. My approach has always been to respond to it, to understand it, and to look to solve it, to roll up our sleeves, work hard, and with ambition for this country and for our future. And I continue to be convinced that Canadians are thoughtful about the challenges we're facing and ready to see them solved, rather than just allow themselves to be have their anger amplified without any solutions offered.
That's Justin Trudeau, who has become deeply, deeply unpopular in Canada. Pierre Poilievre is his opposition leader, making great moves forward, increasing in popularity in Canada. Now there's this. This is from Politico. The capital of one of the world's most stable democracies is gripped by growing panic about foreign agents working in elected office. A bombshell report by Canadian lawmakers has unnerved Parliament Hill, alleging that unnamed politicians have been covertly working with foreign governments. The revelation in heavily redacted findings released this week by an all-party National Security Committee adds intrigue to a separate and ongoing inquiry into foreign interference in Canada's 2019 and 2021 elections. The new report from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians is the first to suggest lawmakers in Canada's parliament may have helped foreign agents meddle in political campaigns and leadership races. Heightened anxiety in Ottawa about foreign interference comes in the middle of historic global elections where factors such as artificial intelligence and emboldened foreign powers are testing the resilience of democratic systems. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been on the defensive ever since the allegations broke Monday. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on the government to name names. The National Security Committee indicates there are members of this House who have knowingly worked for foreign hostile governments. Poilievre said Wednesday, Canadians have a right to know who and what is the information. Who are they? The findings put pressure on Canada's National Police Force to investigate potential charges. But listen to this. The report also refuels debate on the ability of the federal government's deterrence mechanisms to curb foreign influence in a country whose political and legal system is considered one of the highest performing in the world. However, national security information like that in the reports is often not admissible in courts of law, meaning there's no deterrence, legal deterrence. The all-party parliamentary committee said Monday it had reviewed intelligence that suggested semi-witting or witting parliamentarians have worked with foreign missions to mobilize voters during a political campaign, have taken cash knowingly or through willful blindness from foreign missions or their proxies, and have shared privileged information with foreign diplomatic officials. The committee with top security clearance said it based its findings on more than 4,000 documents and 1,000 pieces of evidence. China is the largest foreign interference threat to Canada. India is second. The intelligence includes a claim that unnamed parliamentarians are taking direction from unnamed diplomats to improperly influence their colleagues on parliamentary business to the benefit of a foreign state. One of the most damaging lines in Monday's report points out Canada's failure to address long-standing challenges in how national security information can be used in criminal proceedings. The deputy prime minister told reporters she's taking it seriously, but deflected on whether or not they should reveal the names of the parliamentarians. This is remarkable. This is remarkable. Last fall, Conservative MP Michael Chong appeared before a Congressional Executive Committee on China to testify about targeted influence by Beijing because of his defense of Uyghur issues. This has been happening. Chong discovered through media reports a Chinese diplomat had been assigned to collect information on him. Canada's spy agency warned Canadian parliamentarians that they were being surveilled by China. The Conservatives tend to be the ones most impacted by this. It's Justin Trudeau's party that has benefited. There were allegations already that the Chinese were using money and other means to shift the election in Trudeau's favor last election. It's probably not a coincidence Trudeau's government does not want to release the names of the parliamentarians because a whole lot of them would probably be on his side. Now, keep in mind, this happened in this country. We actually had a Democratic candidate in a primary in New York who the Chinese targeted. The guy wound up losing his primary. China is using its influence. But what's notable here, and what the media isn't going to point out, but what I will point out, is how time and time again the Chinese are advancing progressive candidates, not conservative candidates. The Chinese like progressives. And Justin Trudeau's government of progressives has been very open to helping China. But now look at the map, folks. The United States is surrounded by the Pacific, the Atlantic, Canada, and Mexico. The Chinese are working their influence in Canada and Mexico. We've got natural barriers in the Western Hemisphere that have long protected us, but the Chinese are stacking the deck against us in Mexico. They're working with the narco leaders, the drug lords. They're funneling fentanyl into this country, and now they're working with the progressives in Canada, whose names we don't know because Parliament says they're there, but they won't release it. But they're probably mostly on Justin Trudeau's side. We know there have been conservative parliamentarians in Canada harassed and hounded by the Chinese. We know it's happened in this country. Conservative Chinese immigrants to this country running for Congress and Democratic primaries, harassed and hounded out of races by the Chinese. This is happening. The Democrats can say China's helping Trump, but that's not the pattern. China helps the left. China helps the left. Something to pay attention to. The Canadian government is compromised. Trudeau's government is compromised, and they are our immediate neighbor to the north. We should be worried about that. Back to the phones. Tony, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. Tony, how are you?
How you doing?
Great.
I just want to say something about what you said earlier about the black men not voting Democrat, which you're right. And I just wanted to give you a reason why. The Democrat Party has weaponized black women against black men for a long time. They put black women in positions like prosecutors and judges to lock us up, put us in jail. They put them in power to make us feel like we're not in charge, they're in charge. It's been a plan a long time ago to take the black man out of the household. And so now they see that, like, look how many prosecutors send black men to jail, black judges. And they really haven't had a true, just like you said, African-American president or vice president. Kamala Harris was a prosecutor herself. That's another reason why they don't like her. Look how many black men she locked up. We realize now what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we see what's going on. This is the plan, and to divide our household, to put the black women in power, to belittle us, and that's all because the Democrat Party is the true racist. That's what's going on. Let's all be true and let everybody tell the truth.
All right, listen, man. You get to say that. I'm going to take Tony's word for this. The Democrats are the true racist party. There, Tony. You're going to get me in trouble here, but you're not wrong. I mean, honestly, look at the amount of prosecutions Kamala Harris did in California, particularly for marijuana, putting people in jail, and now saying no one should go to jail for that. She put a lot of them there. Paul, you're going to be the last caller for the day. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Fine, thanks. Hey, Eric, I wanted to call about the VP. You said earlier about Tim Scott, and I really don't think Tim Scott gets as much since we already have the whole South. Georgia is looking really big.
You broke up on me there a little bit, Paul. You there? Paul? Oh, we lost Paul. Uh-oh. He disconnected. I think maybe he's trying to call back. We'll see. We'll give Paul a minute here and see if he's calling back. His call, although we're running out of time here to be able to take a phone call. So let me go on and tell you about Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College, they want your views on presidential selection survey. Speaking of picking vice presidents, what about the president? Some states out there are trying to end the Electoral College. They're trying to do popular vote and have their state's Electoral College vote for whoever wins the national popular vote, regardless of who their state votes for. Hillsdale College, which normally educates us, they want you to educate them on where you stand on this issue. Go to ericforhillsdale.com today. ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Go take the presidential selection survey for Hillsdale College. Educate them on where you stand on this issue. Does the Electoral College work? Does it need to be fixed? Is the popular vote the way to go? They want to know where you stand on this issue. ericforhillsdale.com. In addition, you can find out more about Hillsdale College, which is a fantastic institution that has been educating kids for a very long time. Some of my best friends are graduates of Hillsdale, all super sharp guys, except that one guy. But most of them brilliant. Hillsdale College, ericforhillsdale.com. It is Eric Erickson here. Have you heard about the news down in Florida? Ron DeSantis deciding he's going to throw his weight in. There's a constitutional referendum in Florida on abortion, and it looks like even a slight majority of Republicans support enshrining abortion rights in Florida's Constitution. The governor's trying to push back on that. He's also taking on school unions.
He also signed SB 256, which ushered in a new era of accountability for highly partisan, wayward school unions here in Florida. And what this bill did was it said no automatic deductions in the paycheck. If you want to join the union here in Dade County, you can write a check and you can do that. But we as the state are not going to facilitate those deductions. Part of it is just provides maximum choice without coercion. But part of it's a recognition that these school unions have become ultra partisan. They've been trying to impose left-wing ideology, and the thing is, it's like, wait a minute, are you representing teachers to get better pay and benefits, or are you trying to push a political agenda? And unfortunately, so much of it has been about pushing a political agenda. So this bill really has provided huge amounts of accountability, and it's given a lifeline to so many people in the school systems who didn't feel represented by a union that's pursuing a political agenda.
Amen. They have become very political. So DeSantis and the Republicans in the state legislature in Florida pushed legislation that would allow local officials to ignore mandates from school unions and allow protections for whistleblowers if school or school board administrators tried to force teachers to ignore mandates from the governor under his education powers in the state of Florida. A lot of what has been happening around the country, and in Florida in particular, school unions have basically told local administrators you can ignore the local elected officials who pass laws, that you should ignore them. And in many cases, they've wanted to ignore them because it's conservatives fighting back. They've also been very aggressive in a number of states. In fact, we've seen this here in Georgia. They've seen it in Texas and elsewhere, where local school officials essentially lobbying, using school funds to lobby against school choice. In Texas, there are a number of investigations underway by Ken Paxton, the Attorney General in Texas, against local school boards that arguably use taxpayer dollars to fund political campaigns against school choice. The problem here, and by the way, if you got the show notes this morning, you should know that the head of the UAW is now under federal investigation. That came out, CNBC reported this morning. The head of the UAW under federal investigation. He wants a speaking. He wants to speak at I think it's him or the Teamsters. I think it's UAW guy wants to speak at both political conventions. That's not going to happen. But he's under investigation. And you've got this growing movement on some on the right who want greater unionization. There, you've got some people on the new right who say that we need greater unionization. No, all you're doing is you're giving money to the left when you expand unions. That's what's going down, is massive fundraising for the left. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the people on the right who are most likely to say we should support unions are people who were Democrats and became Republicans. And they still take a lot of the workers' issues and labor union issues, and they treat them seriously. And I don't think they should. The left is not your friend. And the progressive capture of these institutions means that any money you give them is going to be used against you. The left really has. I do have to give it to them. They have excelled at institutional capture in this country. Hollywood, universities, government bureaucracies, unions, any institution not specifically set up as conservative has been captured by the left, and even some that were specifically set up as conservative have moved to the left. We see it across the board in the media, in the newspaper industry, and everything else. So by fighting the unions, and by the way, the Republicans have done a very good job of fighting the unions, and Ron DeSantis upping the effort in Florida, I think it's a good thing to do. I think pushing back on teachers' unions that are trying to kill school choice and kill the right of parents to send their kids and give them good education is a good thing. So good for Ron DeSantis laying down the law in Florida. He's continuing to put points on the board for conservatives. All right, I'm out of town. I'll be back from Louisiana tomorrow unless some guy shows up in a hockey mask out here in the woods and gets me tonight.